Okay, assalamu alaikum. So we're here today back on Speaker's Corner with myself, Dowie, aka Isa, aka Al Rijal, inshallah. So today I have a guest, a very special guest, a very dear friend of mine. You probably don't want me to remember that, but so we're going to have a discussion about something I'm going to be really honest about. I don't know a great deal about. Okay, it's one of those few topics in life that I'm really not up to date with. But this brother, mashallah, is he is an expert in his field. He'd probably be a bit shy to admit that, but he's an expert in his field. And I think it's a really, really important, massive part of the Muslim world right now, inshallah, and the challenges that we face and everything else. And there's more, like I said, I've learned as I've grown up in life that there's more than one way of doing things, and there's more than one way, to get a job done. And it takes a variety of different efforts to get a result. Inshallah, there's more than one piece on a chessboard. Okay, so I'm going to let the brother, his name is Khalid Khan, and I'll let him introduce himself and his background just a little bit, so he gives you a little insight to his qualifications, his experience, and everything else. And then we're gonna jump in, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum, Khalid. Welcome to the show.
Wa alaikum salam, and thank you for having me, Davi.
It's a pleasure, bruv. Always a pleasure to talk to you now.
Yeah,
I know you still talk to me, even though you left Luton. So you're originally from Luton, yeah?
Yeah, so, Marsh Farm.
Yeah.
Grew up together.
We did. We're neighbors, actually.
Neighbors, absolutely.
Yeah.
So grew up together, mashallah. And then I had a bit of luck, mashallah. Went to university, worked obviously UK, and then I ended up in Dubai for 12 years, 11 and a half actually. So that was good, and been in cybersecurity for 30 years, nearly.
30 years in cybersecurity. So
years,
you're reasonably, well, I'm going to say that you're very high up, but how high up are we talking here, bro? What is the status of your level of height in your industry?
Well, I'm 5'10".
Yeah. Okay. Well,
so mashallah. No, so I ran pretty large organizations. So I worked for Intel.
Right.
I ran the services, professional service consulting, basically in advising a lot of our clients. So in the UK, Europe, and across Middle East and Africa. And most of my time was spent leading teams, but mostly looking at companies that had security issues or they weren't protected enough. So early days, we had the start of the internet was a big buzz and a big fad. Everybody was on .com. And so that was when really e-commerce took off. So I was involved in a lot of that work with a lot of e-commerce vendors that were building out e-commerce, virtual shops and so forth, and they weren't secure enough. So they'd get hacked the next day, and then compliance came about, which forced people and organizations to start protecting people's data, privacy, and that sort of stuff. So I worked for quite a few large companies across Europe.
Would we know any? If you said
Intel,
them, or what are they?
Intel,
yeah.
Cisco's, Verizon's, RSA, which was the guys that actually make encryption. Right. Digital encryption for anything and everything that we do, basically. So a lot of those companies, and I've been very lucky. I've traveled the world, engaged in some of the most amazing projects. So examples would be, in Saudi Arabia, the big, massive cyber attack that took place. Where biggest oil company in the world. It has on its gates. It's got 7 gates, and on those gates, it's got machine guns and anti-rocket fires, and on so
it's militarily well
guarded, and you've got F-16s that fly 24/7 guarding that place. That's how important that place is.
Right.
And it was hacked.
Okay.
So the whole of the country was actually in real despair. So that was hacked.
And what part did you play in helping resolve that?
The team that went in, it wasn't just me, but it was the team that we had that were basically called forensics investigators and incident responders. These are people that respond. They're like basically ambulance people. When you have an incident, they have response. So those responders went into Aramco and rescued it back. And when it was hacked,
so the hackers, what they want, information, or do they want the money? What is it that they want?
So the hackers come in many different types, shapes, sizes.
Right.
So you've got the script kiddies, which are people that sit in bedrooms.
Right.
And from bedrooms, they're probably really enthusiastic about cyber or certain things, and they might, without real malice, they may accidentally hack into an organization or might disrupt something. And those are, we call them script kiddies, and you have a lot of those types of attacks. But in terms of its penetration, its impact, usually it's annoying and it's not incredibly impactful.
Right.
Then you've got the hacker that is basically a cyber criminal type. And these cyber criminals are well funded. They are usually
State funded even?
Well, these are could be state funded, but they're typically criminals. So their motive, their motive is usually financial gain.
Right.
Through blackmail, through ransom.
So we'll give you it back if you pay us this money.
Yeah. So they're typically motivated
Yeah.
by a monetary gain.
Right.
Yeah. And then the next stage of a typical hacker, or not typical hacker, now we're getting to more sort of a sophisticated one, more determined one, and they are usually affiliated to a political cause or some type of a cause.
Right.
They're not motivated by money.
So the ideological, political.
Right. Exactly. They're not script kiddies either.
Right.
So they're a bit more sophisticated.
Right.
They have a purpose in life.
Yeah.
And that purpose in life is to basically make their point of view heard, and possibly to damage those they consider harmful to their cause.
Right.
So a typical example would be someone that maybe believes in certain environmental aspects. It could also be someone that believes in a certain type of a cause or a geography or people. So those type of people are politically motivated, they're ideologically motivated, and they are far more
and they don't want money necessarily.
No,
they just want damage.
Yeah, they're like they are the foot soldiers of certain types of people, and they would actually go to any lengths to get.
So regimes will use these, for example, to cause damage to infrastructure of big business.
That's potentially what they do.
Or national security. Or
so we've had examples of electronic Syrian army had a division which was Electronic Syrian Army, ESA, and things like that. There's a few more, but and then you've got the more sophisticated. So that is right at the pinnacle, the top dog, and they are state affiliated actors, and these are state funded. So they have pure play cyber armies, and these cyber armies are affiliated to a state, so they will be part of America, Britain, Korea, China, wherever they are, and they would have incredible amounts of funding. And they would have just about anything and everything they want, and they are very sophisticated. And they are incredibly difficult to detect, and they're very.
So, what sort of damage could they cause if they got in?
So, examples right before us. I mean, there was a cyber attack a few days ago where airlines were booking offices and things like that were affected because it was an attack on a particular third party that basically used it to issue boarding passes and so forth. But so attacks of that type, they would typically be bringing down potentially nuclear power stations. So these are state affiliated. They would be people that could potentially damage grids, national grids,
power grids, banking, even.
Absolutely. Logistics, banking, foods,
railways.
Absolutely. We've had examples of certain affiliated groups that took out certain power stations in Europe. So we've got a lot of those type of groups, and they're very difficult to prevent against it. They're difficult to detect, and they have a higher degree of success
because they're just as smart as you guys.
Yeah, they are people that are they're incredibly intelligent. They're recruited.
When you say well funded, though, brother, why would they need? I mean, what finances would they need to tap into a computer? What goes into that? So a system, for example.
Yeah. So typically, what will happen is that if it's a state nation that wants to say penetrate another state, infrastructure, then what they would do is they do a lot of reconnaissance. So firstly, they do reconnaissance, and then they'd create a plan. And that plan is effectively, first and foremost, they'll spend ages just understanding that environment. And so they will have, systems and products and tools and laptops and devices that allow them to basically intercept conversations and understand what is happening in that particular environment. Once they've got that, then they start creating bots and other type of tools that would ultimately then allow them to do that. So initially it starts with reconnaissance, just watching what it is, and then ultimately, eventually, they will then detonate that. We call it detonate it. And when they detonate whatever they've written, typically, through a phishing campaign or through any other campaigns, and whatever they write is such that they then deploy it. Once they deploy it in that environment, then they
It
detonate
sounds to me like a battlefield.
It is. It's
of a sort.
Yeah, and it's something that we've been seeing a lot of the Western armies use.
Yeah,
we see a lot of.
Well, the West accused China of doing a lot of this.
China, Korea has also been
doing a lot of this as well.
Doing a lot of that. Russian.
I mean, is everyone up to it?
Everybody's up to it. Ukrainians have done that. They've, Ukrainian have another hacker group that's quite prevalent in it. And of course, there's, usually you see nation state actors rise in terms of the breaches that are happening. So breaches are where people are penetrating certain systems and successfully. They might leak data, they might actually do other things, but ultimately it starts happening when there's geopolitics. So there's a real interesting correlation between geopolitics and those nation state actors being activated. So you might have an invasion in Russia and Ukraine.
Yeah,
you'll have certain state actors, then they will just be initiated. So it's almost like having cells, terrorist cells that get initiated by certain groups, and they might do certain bad things. So these nation state affiliated attackers will then be initiated and ultimately create havoc.
So they could create havoc with their national grid, with their financing, with their traveling, with pretty much anything that the country needs to keep going, basically.
Yeah, and so
it's not financially motivated at all, is it? It's just there to cause trouble
for the nation state and the ideologue people, the people that have a cause. Ideologues. Yeah, these guys, they are not affiliated. They're not necessarily after financial gain. They're after disruption and getting their political point. And in the nation state sort of attackers, they're more motivated by geopolitics, and of course the nation has armies. They call them cyber armies.
Yeah,
and these cyber armies are effectively trying to bring down someone's grid or disrupt them. It's almost like you don't have to throw a rocket grenade at a particular physical place. You can actually do it on the net. It's effectively virtual.
Yeah.
So,
but it causes a hell of a lot of damage all the same.
Yeah, and the reason is that most of our electronic devices now are interconnected. So from your phone, your phone is actually connected to the internet, right? Almost every device here is connected one way or another to the phone. Your TV cameras, your CCTV. So if you look at, they call them the Ring doorbell. That Ring doorbell is connected to the internet. Right. So most cameras that are deployed here or anywhere in a UK street, a Saudi Arabian street, a Dubai street, if you really wanted to, you could quite easily tap into it
and see it. So you mentioned more at the beginning of when we first started to speak, brother, that you've worked in Dubai for 11 and a half years, Saudi Arabia as well. How is this affecting the Muslim lands and the Muslim communities at large? Are they more under attack, or are they well defended against this now? Are people like you holding the line for them, or what's happening?
Well, I think certainly there's been a massive development in cyber capability. So what's happened in the maturity curve, we call it the maturity curve. So firstly, the West was an early adopter. It created and initiated all of the internets, the e-commerces and so forth. Slowly it moved to Asia and Americas and Africas and Middle East. So they've had a bit of a catch up. So they weren't as protected initially as they are now. But the spend, when I was, in 2013, 14, I remember from around 2000 to about 2013, 14, our numbers, when we looked at all of the companies that I worked for, are number one, number two in terms of revenue or the number of business, that we did, the projects. They were usually in Germany and UK. So UK would be number one in terms of spend, billions and millions.
In protection.
Yeah, in cyber protection.
Right.
So you would have UK or Germany. One of them two would always come out.
Why is that exactly? Why do you think that was?
Well, two reasons. Well, I think one is because the businesses could afford it. They
Right.
were mature enough. Secondly, they were, they were first movers. So they were the first people to create Amazons. They were the first people to create, revenue streams.
Mm.
And so we would and they were quite rich at that time. So we would always find UK. So I remember going on to my forecast calls and looking at the numbers for across EMEA, Europe, Middle East, and Africa, and UK and Germany would be the two that would be near the top. And when I was finishing when I finished at Cisco, Cisco is a pretty large company, right? So when we finished, we saw that since 2013, 14, the numbers, i.e., the amount of projects, the money being spent, UK and Germany were near the bottom, and Saudi, Dubai, and Qatar would be in the top 2, 3 all the time. So it'd be one or the other. It'd be either Saudi, so Middle East would top.
Why the change then? Because they were becoming more advanced.
They were becoming more advanced. They had more money. They were installing infrastructure. They needed protection. They were rich with money as well. So that was obviously one thing. And secondly, because they lagged on the maturity curve, i.e., they needed to do catch up. They started investing in that. So Germany were top, UK, early 2000s, and then late 2000s, you see a massive uptick in Middle East and Africa. So your question was how and what are they doing? I think one of the biggest mistakes has been that whilst they've been very keen on taking on new technologies and installing new technologies, unfortunately, and certainly my personal experience. So I had a call from the biggest oil company in the world, and they thought they were under attack again.
Yeah.
So they thought they were being
attacked. You the go-to? Did they call you when this happens?
Yeah. So so when I took the call, they said, "Well, we've been hacked again," and I said, "Well, that can't be true because I don't see it on Facebook." I don't see it, because the other thing that hackers do is they have a huge amount of ego, and so what they do is when they do something, they advertise it and they publicize it. So I couldn't see anything on the systems to say that they had been hacked. The hackers were quite quiet, which is very unusual. They normally brag about it. And so what we found was that when I sent in one of my top performers, actually, he's a brilliant guy. He looked, and he found that they had made an error, in operational error, in managing cybersecurity software. And in making that error, they accidentally brought down their servers, almost like the hackers would have done.
So they hacked themselves, basically.
They hacked themselves.
They shot themselves in their own foot, as it were.
Yeah. So what happens when you have sophisticated technologies, unfortunately, unless you know how to use them and are well trained in it, they are quite complex, so they can cause issues as well. But they certainly have increased. They have a lot more, in terms of security. But I remember another, in fact, it was in Oman. We were asked to look at some of the software and hardware that they were deploying. And we had to look to see if there was any backdoors in it. Backdoors meaning access to manufacturer or someone else that could actually come in without you knowing.
So they buy a piece of equipment.
Yeah.
And then there's something built into that equipment which allows the people that built it to get in.
Yeah, without them knowing.
And that's called backdooring.
Backdoor, yeah.
Okay.
So ultimately, espionage-wise, they use that.
Right.
And so a lot of the software that's deployed in the Middle East, I worry because they are not fully aware of what the backdoors are, which means that a nation state could be listening in, could be watching, could be doing things, and that any software, could be anything, is ultimately open to interception somewhere else. So those sort of things I think are slightly concerning because we've seen that they can exploit it. And that's one concern. The other is, of course, people really being aware, including our people here. I think we need to educate our people here how they use social media, what they put up, because everybody thinks that they're secure, but everything's in the cloud. Invariably, whether you like it or not, your photos are in the cloud. And if you are saying things, doing things, and they're in the cloud and you've got sensitive stuff, then it could be used by, people in a hostile way.
Even against ordinary social media users, because never mind governments.
Yeah, because what's happening is that there are certain groups that collect all information. I mean, there's a company called Palantir. Palantir is a company that does social recognition. It does a lot more, actually. It's a very intrusive type of organization, but it's very effective. So a lot of states are now deploying this software called Palantir, and it does facial recognition, and it can identify you. It does a lot of health record monitoring. It does a lot of monitoring. So so theoretically, you've got organizations that are now in the public domain as well, that are ultimately quite could be quite negative for us.
So you see this as a potential threat for Muslims themselves, or
well, I think our brothers need to just make sure that they know where they send their data, how they send their data.
Is there a safe way of doing it though? Because it sounds like they've got bases covered here.
They have, and national health records, they've got access to databases, they've got access to, and you've got to have privacy, right? So you've got to hope that the people that are doing this, the people that are firstly sharing their data, understand how the organization is going to use it, where are they going to keep it, how are they going to keep it, are they compliant to things like GDPR, Data Protection Act, things like that. So just be a bit mindful.
So the National Health would spend a fortune on this type of thing.
They do, and they will. And and our National Health Service records, national health records, are effectively private data that belongs to the UK government. But what happens if a third party has access to it? And which third party has access to it? And how do we allow it? How do we monitor it? So there are questions around it that we need to be mindful of. Also, similarly, what are the implications of of people that might be saying things and doing things that in private that gets leaked, that it shouldn't be, that isn't open to the public. So you obviously got situations where information is private and is to you, and national health record are private to you, and shouldn't be shared, and shouldn't be shared with companies that might misuse it. Similarly, we would do the same for, say, advertising companies. We don't want people calling us and selling us things, or knowing where we live and knowing what they do. So our people need to be very careful as to where they share that information, how they log it, where they put their private information, because it can be misused.
But what choice do you have? I mean, if you're in a National Health Service and they're doing a blood test on you or something like this, what can you say? What is there for you to do? It's out of your hands, isn't it?
Yeah, obviously that's outside your
control, isn't
control.
it?
But what is in your control is to be aware of it and to raise objections if you look into it, and then know about it, and then maybe you might want to raise objections and you might not. But not knowing about it isn't a good thing, because when we don't know something, then what it means is that people get tricked into thinking they're secure, thinking it's going to be used for the right purpose, and if it isn't. That's what my point is, that we as a people and the norm public should be able to say, look, to the government, I want to know how my data is going to be used. I want to know who has my access to my data. So we can only raise that collectively if we know it.
Okay. So,
mashallah.
Right. So you said you spent 11 and a half years in Dubai and Saudi Arabia. What's the most worrying thing you dealt with out there? I mean, what was like the biggest emergency or the biggest type of
I think
cyber threat that you'd had to deal with?
Yeah, so I think,
or are you not allowed to say?
Well, not allowed to say all of them, but certainly I think there was a time when there was a lot of geopolitics going on. There was a time when there was a guy called Morsi, who was the Egyptian president at that time. And there was a lot of internal issues that were happening between Saudi, Qatar, and UAE and Turkey. So some liked him and some didn't. And so there was a lot of internal, things going on, including, and we developed this software which would basically monitor. So it was an intelligence software. So we were monitoring what was happening, who was doing what, and this is all in the public domain. So what we did was we wrote software that would take everything that was in the public domain and scrape it, and then basically categorize it and catalog it. So what we found was, there was sophisticated ways of collecting it. So it's not just Facebook, but there was a lot more that went into it. And so what we were able to do was just see what was actually happening, who was doing what, and we found a couple of threat actors, state affiliated actors that were, from a particular country, so Syria, And then we had the UAE government that wanted access to that data, but the data belongs to Intel. I work for Intel.
So they couldn't get it.
So that caused a little bit of an issue for me. Because they felt that it should be made available, and we were in a bit of a situation where we said, well, we've developed this; it doesn't belong to, certain. It's global, It's and it was a bit of a hairy one, but we dealt with it quite amicably. But I think those sort of geopolitics that happens in that region can be quite sensitive. So so I was going to fly to Qatar one day. I went to the airport. Emirates and in Dubai, and when I got to the check-in, the flights to Qatar were cancelled. I found out that there was a embargo or blockade of Qatar. So those sort of things just can happen.
Just like that.
Yeah, but obviously that was a few years ago. It's no longer no longer happening. It's a lot more. There's a unity forming, I feel, as well.
This program will continue after the break. Continue listening to Inspire FM. Inspire FM.
Inspire 105.1 FM.
Hiya, I'm the Reverend Bonnie Evans-Hills. I'm Interfaith Advisor in the Diocese of St Albans. I would encourage you highly to listen to Inspire FM at 105.1.
Behind the headline lie a reality, the shattered hospital, the broken life, the voice of those who survive. On Friday, 26 September, at Dallo Community Center, Luton, hear first-hand testimony from surgeons who just returned from Gaza, witness the truth of what really happening in its war-torn street. Tickets are just £10, including a delicious 3-course meal. All proceeds on the night is for Gaza, providing water, food, medicine. Book your ticket by calling 01582 4818 and act now. Tomorrow may be too late. Jazakumullahu khairan.
For 30 years, we've been opening doors for small businesses and large. Opening fully stocked fridges and same-day deliveries. Opening birthdays and graduations and new homes and happy tears and you shouldn't haves. Opening ambulances and life-saving support. Opening roads that open up cities and countries and continents. Opening up the world. See how the Mercedes-Benz Sprinter can open doors for your business at your local Mercedes-Benz dealer today.
Landlords, let us take away the hassle of letting your property. Our comprehensive services include tenant vetting, rent collection and service charges, maintenance and repairs. Ideal Properties has 2 branches and have been established over 20 years and have gained a wealth of knowledge and experience.
If you are thinking of selling or letting your property, then speak to a member of our knowledgeable team about a free, no-obligation market appraisal.
We can also offer guaranteed rental income.
Contact us on either Luton 721110 or 696050. Ideal Properties. Service with a smile, whatever your needs.
Universal Clutches on Cosgrove Way in Luton offer more than just clutch repairs. We also now cover MOTs, servicing, brakes, suspension and vehicle recoveries. We've got you covered whether you drive a manual or semi-automatic car, van or truck. We aim to provide a quick and reliable service, and Universal Clutches are an AA and RAC approved garage. For a reliable service you can trust, call 01582 876 300 or find Universal Clutches on Google, Instagram and Facebook.
Biscott Pharmacy, your one-stop health and beauty pharmacy in Luton, stockist of over 8,000 health and beauty products. At Biscott Pharmacy, we offer a range of services, including health advice and repeat prescriptions for collection and delivery to your home. We also offer a Hajj and Umrah vaccination. Come in and see us and ask about our Stop Smoking service. We're open 7 days a week till late, including bank holidays. Biscott Pharmacy, 157A Biscott Road, Luton. Call 457709.
Can you imagine losing your parents and seeing your home destroyed? Thousands of children in Gaza have lost one or both of their parents. Agorsh UK invites you to sponsor an orphan in Gaza and provide them with life-changing care, protection and hope. Let's help orphans to rebuild their lives. Donate your zakat and sadaqah for an orphan in Gaza today. £500 per year or £42 per month. Visit Agorsh UK.
From the studios of Inspire FM, the time is now 6:30.
Okay, assalamu alaikum. So you're back on Speaker's Corner. We had an abrupt end to the break there because I wanted to let the brother talk and talk and talk, rather than give the countdown for the break. Alhamdulillah. So what we're going to discuss, we was just talking during the break, is what do we do in this country, brother, to protect ourselves? And because this is cybersecurity is something very new to me. I know it's a massive thing. I just don't know about it, which is my ignorance. But you was giving me some ideas during the break about what the Muslim community need to do in this country now in order to use this as a sort of advantage to ourselves, because it's definitely going to be used against us, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, it is being used. How is it being used against us right now, for example?
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the biggest issues that we've now faced is, if you look at the march, just going back a couple of
the 13th of September march, the 6 million man march.
Yeah,
that one.
So whether it's 110,000, 150,000, or whatever, the point is that
3 million apparently, bro.
Well, it could be 6 million. Yeah. So what it shows is that march, at least to me, it meant that there were people that were racists and fascists that were there. Not all of them were racists or fascists, but all the racists and fascists were probably in that march. I think people had genuine grievances and they went to that march. They didn't necessarily
subscribe to everything being said.
To everything that was being said.
I agree with that. Yeah.
I think we as a Muslim community need to understand the influence that cybersecurity and cyber, so not just security, but cyber has created. Social media as a cyber platform. And what it tells you, if you look at some of the biggest owners of cyber platforms or social media platforms, you look at, all of this X and TikTok and everything, why they're not incredibly profitable. So you got to ask the question, well, why are these billionaires
buying them up?
Because this is a modern way of creating revolutions without doing much. So it's mind control, it's changing perceptions of people, it's making falsehood to be truthful, making people into absolute horrible vampires. They wish to make them as such. So it's an incredibly influential platform.
Right.
So what we need to do as Muslims, I think, is that two things. One is that we need to get with it, understand it rather than ignore it. So let's get our heads out of the sand and let's tackle it. Second thing we need to do is every single one of us needs to understand that we do have a voice. And that voice is incredibly important. So that means influencing, obviously creating content. But if you can't create content, and if you don't know how to use something because you're not technically good at it, at least support people that do, people like you.
Yeah, alhamdulillah, I agree with that.
Yeah, support people that are willing to go out there, that are willing to change perceptions, so we should be funding. I mean, I love what Breezy Politics says. It's a 30-minute to a minute, typically, of shorts that they push out. Declassified is another organization that, that basically monitors and checks on Israeli and other intelligence officers and other things that happen that are really useful. That doesn't mean that we have to, necessarily say, yes, we abide by it, but there are many different camps and very many 5 pillars. Again, it's another one. I think he's a Luton boy.
I don't know. Yeah,
I think he is.
We've reached out to him lately, but he hasn't answered.
Okay, so again, now they're pushing out a few content. So we need content creators. We need young people, and I have said this to you before, and I believe this as well. I think our mosques are unfortunately unable to I guess gain traction quickly enough. But certainly our ISOCs, Islamic societies that exist in British universities. So they're
very active, aren't they?
Well, they're not really.
Are they not?
No, we have very skilled individuals that go to top universities. Those universities have things called Islamic societies of universities. Typically with very capable people with a lot of resources that they have in the libraries, in the media rooms and the labs that they've got. We need them to be very active participants. So we need a way of collaborating between mosques, local community leaders, and the brightest and the best at universities, because they have the tools, they have the techniques, they have the labs, they have the equipment that they can use to hone in their skills and use it to edit videos, to create content, to create that sort of stuff, that persona.
Unfortunately, though, I found my own experiences with the masjids in England is that we are at the back end now of a generation where they are still being run by relatively old men that are out of touch with the general community at large, and the youth basically have to wait for them to retire or die before the younger generation can start taking over committees. And because right now it's when you try, I don't know if you ever tried to work with a mosque committee.
I try not to.
They're really hard work.
Yeah,
I've tried with many of them. I'm not singling any out. They're really hard work.
Yeah, I mean,
they make every excuse to not do something.
And think about it. If you're going to, change a carpet or a chandelier or a tap.
Dilly from 5 Pillars is from Bedford, by the way.
Okay.
And just one of some. And Loki, you aware of Loki?
Loki, yeah.
Loki on the Watchdog podcast is good too.
Yeah.
So I'm just reading the text. Yeah.
No, absolutely. Loki is very, very influential in that.
He's
sense.
very well informed. Yeah. What's that? Who's that brother that I forgot his name. It's gone right out of my head. He does he grills them. He does he's been on Piers Morgan. That's him.
Mehdi Hassan.
Very mashallah. He's well across the facts.
So we have to bring people like that. So we have to have debaters at universities. That's a skill that we need to teach our kids, how to debate without getting angry and start fighting. We got to have debating skills. But I think the biggest thing we can do right now is to help either content creators create content, to sponsor them.
Yeah.
Go in and sign up to Breezy Politics, Declassified. I recently started funding those type of groups because I think they do a good job.
They do, yeah.
Right? People like you, Dawi, I think if we can help people like you get messages across and that message resonates with the normal, typical,
white working class,
because there's living in an echo chamber of like-minded people isn't going to help us.
Well, you know very well, brother, because we started some new platforms now, myself, Jordan, and a few others behind the scenes, called Real Talk Britain.
Okay.
Although I deal with it a lot on my platforms, which is Al Rijal, the idea is that we set up other platforms called Real Talk Britain, as YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, to purely deal with this issue of what we're talking about today with the right wing and the immigration and the anti-Muslim narrative that's going around, and all the content. And we do podcasts on it. We'll do we have done a podcast, waiting for that to be edited, and we'll have guests in, people that can. Because Jordan M is obviously a white revert as well. I'm a white revert, and the idea is that we hopefully we're a little bit more relatable to that demographic that you were just discussing there, the average white guy who maybe doesn't subscribe to what the likes of Tommy and Katie and Faraj say, but he's kind of peed off at the same time, and he has issues that he thinks are being ignored.
Yeah, and if I was a working class white builder somewhere, I would be seeing, going to a pub, I'd be seeing things on short media that would tell me that Muslims are bad, right?
And taking over, replacing everything,
replacement theory, right?
Yeah.
And so how do we counter it? We counter it by having that, a counter narrative to it. I mean, back in the 70s, 80s, I mean, the 80s, I remember, late 80s, early 90s, National Front was around.
Yeah. But it was easy to deal with because they were thugs.
They were thugs. But the thing was, it was not it was mostly the social workers, the white working classes that were, coming out and really opposing them. The thing we've got to do is know that there's a lot of English white working classes that actually don't support them.
They don't. I agree with that. And I'm being one of them.
Yeah. And we've got to realize that actually we got to appeal to everybody, right? And the other thing that we need to do is in these, shorts or whatever we create, we need to create a bridge with a lot of the Christians in the country because it is a Christian country.
Well, it's not technically a Christian country now because most people subscribe that they don't go to church or don't believe in Christianity. However, it was built upon supposedly 1,000 years of Christians.
So those that go to church is what I'm talking about.
There's not that many of them, bro.
Absolutely. Okay. So whoever they do, because I think we have a lot of commonality in a lot of aspects, because certainly, our understanding and our, the recognition of Jesus plays a big part.
Yeah.
Well, at least
we
recognize
acknowledge Isa alayhi salam as as a Messiah. He'll return.
Exactly. And we are the
Immaculate Conception.
Three religious sects that we have, the three big
the Abrahamic beliefs, yeah.
We align more,
of course,
than the third.
The Prophet ﷺ said that from the people of the book that are closer to you, and he put his fingers together, are you and the followers of Jesus.
Right.
So we are, I mean, the Jewish faith doesn't acknowledge him in any sense. In fact, if you read the Talmud, they say some very despicable things about him, but at best they don't acknowledge him. So Muslims acknowledge, to us, we can't say his name without saying peace be upon him behind it.
And I think to me,
that's how he's revered.
And I find that I think if we're going to debate on Jesus Christ, and I think if we're going to say things about him that differ with the Bible, we've got to be mindful that it might be the first time they hear it. It might be difficult for them to understand it.
Yeah.
We got to go easy on it because it says, Allah said, I made it appear that he was crucified. Well, if he made it appear that he was crucified, what are the people likely to think? They saw him being crucified. It's not their fault.
But this comes down to having the belief in the Quran as the last revelation, when Allah says, but he was not crucified, I raised him to myself, I raised him to the heavens.
And he says, I made it appear.
Yeah, I made it appear. So it was an illusion at the time.
But they've got that in the book because they haven't read the Quran, right?
And also, they don't know. I don't think a lot of people realize that if there was a more traditionally Christian ethic and moral compass in this country, Muslims would be cool with that. Family centric, honest. There's not that much that we conflict on. Really and honestly, when it comes to behavior and things like this.
And I think that's a key bridge for us, because if you look at where if you look at the war in Iraq, you look at what's happening in Gaza, you look at anything and everything that's really hurt the Muslims, it's been the Christian evangelical Christians out of the Bible Belt.
Yes.
And so we've got to really look at what it is that they've.
But they believe that they have to defend the state of Israel. That's
a misinterpretation of their own Bible, right?
It's a translation by, I think his name was Stockfold.
Yeah, it was Schofield.
Sorry, it's Schofield. Yeah,
it was Schofield
who translated Jacob as Israel. And strangely enough, we know who put him in that position to make that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And that's where the debate needs to start happening, because if we can start looking at the passages of things that they follow and how we can, relate to it, then I think it helps them. It will help them, because I think they're following potentially a corrupted version, and maybe
it is a corrupted version in a sense, and we mean that with all due respects.
Yeah.
But because Allah says in the Quran that their book there's some truth in it, and they've mixed the truth with the lies, so that means there's a corruption to it.
But that's the sort of debate, right? That's the debate that needs to take place.
It does
in a nicest.
However, I don't think that the Christians are the ones that are really pushing against us, to be quite honest with you. Now, Tommy, surprisingly, in his wisdom, has decided that he wants to realign himself with Christianity now, after years of saying he's not Christian, and he's not religious at all. Now it's all about, this is a Christian country, it's been built upon Christian ethics.
Well, he's
Christian
probably
rules.
being paid a bit more than I guess.
No, but we know who pays him, bro. I mean, it's not a secret, and I'm not going to say it on the show, but it's very, very clear who pays him. Look, Elon Musk funds all of his legal bills,
right?
And he does a GoFundMe and then goes guilty.
Wow.
You know what I mean? So he is a grifter, as we know. I mean, I don't think anyone in the public eye like that will admit to this. But how, as Muslim, I don't like to use the word influencers, brother, because our influencers, if we're going to have influencers, should be people of knowledge in the religion, scholars, alims, da'is, and people like this.
But they might not,
but they're not normally great on social media.
Or they can't. If you can't communicate, you can't do it.
In that context, they're not great in social media. Not a lot of them.
No
anyway.
disrespect to them, but they can be geniuses. But if they're not easy to listen to or communicate with, then I think that battle is lost.
But that lies. The problem there, I believe, lies with the masses, not with the scholars. The scholars are there to teach us religion. They're the inheritors of the Prophet ﷺ. Okay, if we don't take from them, it's probably because we're conditioned a certain way.
100%, and we need to learn from them, and we need to sit with them, and we need to understand how we can communicate effectively,
and that's it,
with their message, with their advice and guidance.
Because there's especially now when we're giving dawah and we're calling the Christians and the non-Muslims to listen to what we got to say about our religion. That's where you need a bit more common relatability. A sheikh in Saudi Arabia, or a sheikh in Yemen, or a sheikh somewhere probably doesn't have that common relatability to the sort of person that may be confused about what Tommy Robinson is saying. And I just ask people to fact check things that they get told now. I mean, if he can lie about 3 million people at a march, which clearly wasn't more than 200,000. And even if you put it at 500,000, which is impossible, is 2.5 million out. You know what I mean?
So the thing is that I think, you know, we've got to learn that certain type of scripts are basically they run a script, and that script has a very defined method, and this has been going on for years. You know, a lot of the Zionist influencers have always followed the script. You know, and so what I think has to happen is that we've got to, you know, take each one of those and basically debunk it in the best way possible, and that means again having knowledge.
But are these said groups, without mentioning names, are they going up against our algorithms? Is it possible that they could be, because some of the videos that I make get shadow banned, clearly get shadow banned.
Yeah.
You know, is it possible that they can tamper with it in such a way?
Yeah. So the algorithms, obviously, when Musk took over X, and when TikTok's going through now to the American. The Americans have now signed on to it, from what I understand. So TikTok is no longer Chinese now in America. It'll be effectively American. Their version. So yes, of course, they control the algorithm. They have algorithms that have certain, parameters, and they set those parameters. So yes, your videos probably, would get shadow banned. Certain words get shadow banned. And so what it means is that we need our people of knowledge, not of religious part. I'm not saying that disrespectfully,
of course not,
being disrespectful to them, but the people that would know this are these youngsters that are studying at university that should be able to look at the algorithm, the methods of the algorithm, and they should be able to bring that back to our community and tell us how we can manage it.
100%.
Because we don't know it. And the reason we don't know it is because, firstly, we're not necessarily programmed to know it. I mean, I know that the algorithms have a certain way of measuring, and all it does is it effectively uses a set of principles, and it says, does this guy talk about this word? This word appear? Does that appear so many times? And then what it does is it correlates the amount of times it appears.
Right.
And then it says, no, this guy should be banned, or this one should be done. So if you started then manipulating those words or keeping them out and having people like your videos or dislike them, I mean, I report many of them. If I see anything I don't like, I hit the report.
You do?
Yeah. It's a report.
Do you think it matters? Do you think it?
I think it influences the algorithm.
You do?
Yeah. And if you comment, I think it influences the algorithm. It doesn't matter if it's negative or positive, but I think adding comments can influence.
I've had some videos go up to 2 million.
Yeah.
Okay, alhamdulillah. And then some that I really thought should do well because I'm saying something which I think is important.
Right.
May they get like 1,000.
Yeah.
So there's something going on. There's clearly something going on.
Yeah.
They banned one of my videos for violent extremism, and I'm far from violent extremism. I'm trying to bring people together more than that's what I'm trying to do, inshallah. But I'm just wondering now how this cyber platforms of social media, how it's such a relevant part of the dawah now. It really is.
Yeah.
And how do we protect ourselves? Because you're the guy to tell us how to protect ourselves from that. I'm in the mix. I'm on social media a lot. I'm reasonably sort of out there on social media, alhamdulillah. How do I protect myself? What could come my way? Well, you're supposed to stick up for me, brother. I'm like, we grew up together, man.
Yeah.
What happens to me if I go down?
Yeah, I think this is where it becomes really incredibly important that we all understand what it actually means. Because to be honest, I mean, there could be legal liabilities, there could be legal cases. Certainly, there are people that have. You saw what happened to very recently the guy that was shot.
Charlie Kirk.
Yeah. All right. So there's a lot of extremism in every field, every sect, and I think it's really, really important that you understand how you're putting out your stuff.
It's a responsibility.
It's got to be accurate as well. So you don't want to bring the ummah to just because you've said something that maybe religiously wasn't right. At the same time, you got to protect yourself legally. So I think we need people. And we need, somehow a group within our community that can give us guidance on it. These are the do's, these are the don'ts. This is the way you increase.
I'm not aware of it.
No,
If there
because
is, no one's contacted me.
No, but
And
I mean, there definitely has to be something that needs to be formed, that just even as an advice and guidance center that allows our content creators to allow them to express themselves within the legal framework, not say things that are illegal or.
But it seems it seems a very one-sided situation, because I'm really shocked at some of the things that people can say about Islam, race, dehumanizing language. Tommy Robinson calling Pakistani men up north celebrating Independence Day or something. He put a rat emoji. This is dehumanizing language. Okay, I'm really shocked how they can get away with that. And a Muslim could say something on, or I could say something on social media, and boom, it's out. I've lost. They deleted one of my TikTok accounts. It's quite a big account actually, alhamdulillah, at the time. And all I'd done, someone asked me a question about Israel. What's the problem? Someone at work, actually, a guy that I was working for. And I answered it by saying, if you want to know where the problem started, look at the map of Palestine in 1948 and look at it now.
Right.
That video, they deleted every single video from my account. I couldn't get it back.
Right.
The whole account. But Tommy Robinson's out there calling for basically, real problems. He has people like Elon Musk, fight or die, which, by the way, he won't be doing either, because he's one of the richest guys in the world. He's not a foreigner coming over here on telling us whether we should fight or die with each other. I think is absolutely disgusting. People on his stage, we only want Christianity in this country. Every religion is false. Churches, temples should be burnt down. I'm quoting what they're saying. How do they get away with it, bruv? And why do they get away with it? And we can't. I'm tiptoeing around on eggshells when I'm talking.
Yeah, and what's even worse and embarrassing is the fact that in the Muslim world, 2 billion of us, and we don't have a platform of our own. We shouldn't be using their platform anyway. We should have our own platform.
Can we make one, or is that even possible?
Of course, it's possible. It's easy. This is schoolboy stuff. All of this is nothing except a couple of servers and a database, and that's it. Any idiot can build that.
So why are we still using theirs?
Because
I don't get it.
we do even worse things, right? We don't understand a lot of the stuff, such as the U.S. economy is 70% of the world economy. Basically, we buy Apple, but we boycott McDonald's. So all of us,
but it's
none
easy
of us
to boycott
goes to
McDonald's, because most
Starbucks.
Muslims don't eat McDonald's in this country, do they? So
that's true, and Starbucks and all of that. But we'd have an Apple phone.
Yes,
Apple Phones is the second biggest company. I think now is the second. It was the first. So between Nvidia and Apple, that's $1 trillion economy.
Wow.
Why are Muslims, not able to choose a Samsung phone? What is it? I mean, I'm not saying Samsung's brilliant, but at least be mindful of where you're investing and where you're buying your stuff. Because if you're boycotting Starbucks, which I absolutely admire, and McDonald's, great, fine.
I don't go there either.
Yeah, great. But if you don't know that your dollars are going to a certain organization or company that might be propping up certain things, and that makes it worse.
But wouldn't those tentacles reach into just about every business and every facet of public, business life and government life? Because everyone we pay tax in this country at some point is going to be used for something like that, isn't it?
We've propped it up, haven't we? I mean, the billionaires haven't become billionaires without us contributing to them being billionaires. If it wasn't for us buying, the Gucci brands, the Chanels and Dior's.
I don't buy them, by the way.
No, me neither. Last time I bought Chanel.
Difference is you could afford them and I couldn't. So alhamdulillah.
That plus, yeah. So we've propped up that economy.
I've got a quick question for you while I'm thinking of it. Slightly off track. Name me do you know the countries that don't have a central bank right at the moment?
Iran doesn't, neither does North Korea.
Yeah.
I think there's
Russia?
a couple of others. Russia does have a central bank, but it's Russian central bank.
Is it so the world central bank? I mean,
yeah. So the Federal Reserve and the World Central Bank, all the countries have that, except I think North Korea and Iran. I think Russia now as well, because it wasn't connected to it. I think China doesn't, but I'm not sure about certain.
No, I know Iraq never, Libya never.
Yeah, Libya didn't, but obviously that's why it was invaded.
Yeah, it does now. Yeah,
it does, because it was going to trade in gold, and he was.
Yeah,
Colonel
Gaddafi wanted an African.
Yeah, and
currency,
Iraq was going to do the same.
Yeah,
and Iraq was going to trade oil in euros actually.
Yeah,
so it wanted to diversify from US. But that's that's unfortunate. But the Federal Reserve and the central banks effectively control a lot of that. But we as individuals also contribute to it, because invariably we put into pensions. Pensions are invested into government debt, that are basically bonds, government bonds, treasuries they call them. So there's a lot of stuff that we do without knowing, and then there are things that we know, like Apple. And we should know Apple. We should know where
it's an easy one.
Because every time you buy an Apple phone, you're effectively contributing to an economy that might be harmful to you. And I think even that is acceptable, as long as you know, and you need to do it because you have to use it for work.
So would just using the banking system generally in this country would contribute to it at some point?
Yeah, and that's fine if you you have to live, right? And you don't have an alternative. So I don't have an issue with it. But as long as you know that what you're doing and how you're doing it, there's a lot of ways that Muslims can do things, and there's a lot of ways.
Am I protected, bro? On social media, do you think I'm protected? Because I feel vulnerable, to be honest with you.
Yeah, well, I think as long as
I get a lot of death threats, but I'm not worried about them. I mean, am I protected against the powers that be?
Well, I think at the moment you are, because I think we still have a good legislative system in the UK. Right. I don't think we're as bad as the US in that sense.
Yeah,
I think
they're really shutting it down over there.
Yeah. I think we've got a rule of law, and I think our judiciary is still somewhat independent, and I think it is quite ethical to some extent.
Brother, look, we've got a few seconds left of the show. Jazakallah khair for coming in, bro. We need you back, because I think these topics can't be discussed in one session. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.